My name is Bironji, and I have lived through many seasons in these hills of Chigezi. I have seen the rains carve rivers into the land, the sun burns the grass into brittle straw, and the winds sweep through our terraced slopes. But none of these could carve, burn, or sweep away the memory of Kansime's story. It is a tale I wish I had never witnessed, but one that I must tell, for it is both a warning and a plea for the future. Kansime was a girl like no other in our village. Her laughter rang out like a bell on market days, her hands quick and skillful at weaving baskets, and her beauty, her beauty was like the first bloom of a hibiscus flower. But the hills that cradle beauty can also harbor cruel fates, and hers was sealed the moment she conceived a child out of wedlock. In our Bakiga tribe, tradition runs deep, as old and unyielding as the rocks that form the cliffs surrounding our village. A girl who became pregnant before marriage was seen as a disgrace, a stain upon her family's honor. There were no questions, no discussions. The law of the elders was clear. She must be pushed off the cliff, and it was her brother's duty to carry out the sentence. When the news of Kansime's pregnancy spread, the village erupted into whispers. Women huddled together, shaking their heads in disapproval. Men spoke of dishonor and shame over calabashes of millet beer. Even the children, too young to understand, pointed at Kansime and giggled as she walked past. She became an outcast, her presence a shadow that seemed to darken the very air. Her mother, Chikwanzi, was inconsolable. Chikwanzi was a woman of strength and grace, a matriarch who commanded respect with her every word. But this was beyond her. Day after day, she went to the elders, her face streaked with tears, her voice hoarse from pleading. She knelt before them, begged them to forgive her daughter, to spare her life. "She's young," Chikwanzi cried. "She made a mistake, but she's still my child. Please have mercy." The elders, their faces as unmoving as the cliffs themselves, refused. "Tradition is tradition," they said. "To spare her would bring dishonor to us all." Tumwine, Kansime's older brother, showed no such sorrow. From the days they were children, he had harbored a deep resentment towards his sister. Perhaps it was jealous of the attention she received, or perhaps it was something darker that only he understood. When the elders decreed that he must push her over the cliff, he did not hesitate. In fact, he seemed almost eager. A twisted smile played on his lips as he accepted the task. The day of the execution arrived. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a red-orange glow over the hills. The entire village gathered at the cliff's edge, a solemn procession of people dressed in mute colors. No one spoke. The only sound was the wind whistling through the trees. Kansime was led to the cliff by two elders. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with a defiance that I will never forget. She did not cry. She did not beg. She walked with a dignity that seemed to shame everyone present, even as they condemned her. Tumwine stood at the edge, waiting. His arms were crossed, his expression unreadable. When Kansime reached him, he grabbed her arm roughly, pulling her closer to the brink. The crowd watched in silence, their breath held, as though they might fall if they exhaled. Kansime turned to face her brother, her voice calm but cutting. "You have always hated me, Tumwine. I know this brings you joy. But remember this, the ancestors are watching, and they will judge you for what you do today." For a moment, Tumwine's face faltered. Perhaps it was guilt, or perhaps it was fear, but it was fleeting. He pushed her towards the edge, his hand steady, his resolve unbroken. What happened next was so sudden that no one could react. As Tumwine shoved her, Kansime reached out and grabbed his shirt. Her grip was fierce, unyielding, fueled by a determination to not die alone. Tumwine's eyes widened in shock as she pulled him with her. Together, they tumbled over the edge, their screams echoing as they disappeared into the abyss below. The crowd was stunned into silence. No one moved. No one spoke. It was as though time itself had frozen. Then Chikwanzi's wails shattered the stillness. She fell to her knees, her cries rising and falling like waves crashing against the cliffs. It was a sound so raw, so filled with anguish, that even the elders, those stoic guardians of tradition, looked away, their faces heavy with something that might have been regret. In the days that followed, the village was a different place. People whispered that Kansime's death was a sign, warning from the ancestors that the old ways must change. Others argued that Tumwine's fall was his punishment for harboring such hatred. The elders held their silence, but their eyes betrayed a doubt that had never been there before. As for me, I could not forget, I still cannot forget, the image of Kansime's defiant eyes, the sound of her mother's cries, the weight of a tradition that demanded blood to cleanse dishonor. This haunts me to this day. And so, I tell this story not to glorify what happened, but to ensure it is never repeated. The hills of Kigezi are beautiful, but they have seen enough blood. It is time for us to carve new paths, to let the winds carry away the weight of the past, and to let the sun shine on a future free from such cruelty.